Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. So, about 3 years on, what what have you guys done? You're the coordinating director of the secretariat. Speak to me about what has happened because in the last 2 or close to 3 years, I don't know if I've seen something significant that I will call a milestone. Apart from the commissioning of your secretariat here by the SA to the present president on energy.
No, thanks, Nancy. And I think it's always good to sort of do that slight historic recap, where the president had set a direction, 2021. I think some of the big things you probably have seen, you've seen LNG take FID on Train 7. That's a multi-billion-dollar gas project. Later that year, of course, you saw the PIA was passed, the Petroleum Industry Act. For the first time in the Petroleum Industry Act, we now had gas fiscals clearly included. You also saw the creation of the NMDPRA, a regulatory agency just to address gas. Also, as part of that PIA, we also had the setup of the midstream and downstream gas infrastructure fund, a key parastatal that would drive investment in gas infrastructure in country. That was in 2021. Of course, you've also seen the sort of progress being made on the AKK project. FID has been taken, construction is ongoing. You've seen the startup of the Dangote gas fertilizer project, one of the biggest gas projects in the country. All these are happening during the decade. In 2023, we sort of stepped up what needed to be done here because, of course, the decade of gas itself is a collaboration between the government and the private sector. What the new president has done, as he has then sort of created a Minister of State for Gas to sort of drive that gas focus. He has also appointed an SA to the president, or just to focus on energy, integrating both the gas side, the petroleum, the oil side, and the sort of power side. And we are beginning to see that clear focus leading to more tangible results. Over the past 6 months, I'm sure you've been in the news, you've seen the executive directives that have been passed by the president. The first of the executive directives focuses on fiscals for NAG and NAG gas fields for onshore and shallow water. Big development for the industry, clear directives for the NCDMB, and of course, some of the actions around the contracting process. These are clear positive signals for investors. Also in January, I'm sure you probably sort of noticed that Shell had taken FID on the Seni, a project that is going to bring an additional 100 million scoop of gas flowing directly into the sort of domestic market. In January, we've seen an uptick in gas production across the country, with slight movement that we think is sort of heading in the direction that we want to see, following a lot of integrated work happening across various parastatals in the government. At the decade of gas, our focus is really simple. We're trying to see how we can accelerate Nigeria's gas production and gas consumption, both for export and the domestic market. So whether you're talking about gas to power, gas to homes, gas to industries, the infrastructure required to build it, we're sitting at the back end of all those activities, providing the resources, answering what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and when it needs to be done, and then just tying together all key stakeholders that are sort of responsible for driving the change that we require. In 2024, specifically, we are confident that Nigeria will be able to increase its domestic gas production by 20%. This is a huge step. Perhaps to make that clear, you've also sort of seen at the end of December and January, Seplat achieved mechanical completion of its Asa North facility in Imo State. Shell had also already drilled wells that would sort of supply that midstream facility. The completion of that key facility, together with the delivery of the link line on OB3 being driven by NNPC Limited, would ensure that over 100 million scf of gas a day can now flow across the east and the west of the Nigerian market. In terms of power terms, that's equivalent of injecting an additional 1.2 gigawatts of energy equivalent into the system. So I'm confident that we are closer to a lot of positive feel, both for the manufacturing plants, for the power plants, and for all the other industries that sort of require gas in the domestic sector. I'll
Okay.
pause there.
Yeah, yes, because I have a lot of holes to punch
Yeah,
from what you have said. The decade of Nigeria's decade of gas is government-led initiative, isn't it? But you're also working with stakeholders. Is that it?
correct. Very closely. In fact, our secretariat is funded both by government and all the key private sector players that you have, the IOCs, the independent oil and gas players, both large and small, they all part and sit together to make decisions.
Good. Where I'm going with that question is most of the stuff you've reeled out to me is private sector driven. Dangote, Seplat, and all of that. What concrete steps is the Secretariat or Nigeria's decade of gas? Because I also remembered under Buhari, it was launched with the former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. What's his name again? You know, sometimes when they leave office, you just forget their names easily. You
Dr.
know,
Silva.
yes,
Good.
you know who I'm talking about. So what concrete steps, what concrete actions is the Nigeria decade of gas taking away from what private sector is doing that you're reading out for me as an achievement? Then number one, you actually also mentioned that there's an aspiration of increasing production volume by 20%. Where are we right now that you want to increase it in terms of volume? Then number three, how big is Nigeria's gas market? How big is it that we can go into some other stuff? I don't want to bug you with so many
No,
questions at a go.
thanks, Nancy. So in the oil and gas sector, if the government side does not provide the right environment, there will be no activity on the private side. So, for instance, if you look at the executive orders that Mr. President has issued, excellent work being done by the SR on energy. Those executive orders, based on independent analysis, adds an additional IRR of between 5 and 10%. And I mean, you are the money lady. So it then means that if you're planning to do a private sector project in gas, that was sort of hovering around your typical 10 to 15 IRR, just by sort of looking at those directives and sort of implementing it on top of that, the profitability of that your project just sort of then just jumps by a significant margin. This is huge, and we believe that those executive orders, once that follow through, is a big game changer for enabling the market. We want the gas sector to be private-led. I think that is clear. But at my time at the NGA, it's always going to be the private sector that will drive gas development. The government will provide the enabling environment, the steers, the regulations, and the laws to ensure that that market can thrive. So I think that was the first point I sort of wanted to address. So when we talk about increasing the domestic gas supply by 20%, we're currently hovering at, for domestic side, we're hovering at about 1.2 BCF a day. So we hope that we can then sort of add an additional 200, 300 million scoop of gas a day, sort of take it above that 1.5. At the sort of bigger level where we're sort of doing about 8 BCF of production. Over the decade, we've now sort of identified 20 key projects, which we then need to sort of enable that would ensure that Nigeria's production moves from 8 to about 12.6 BCF within the decade. So those are some of the sort of long-term plans. March and April, we're very keen and we are very confident that NMPCL will deliver the OB3 link line. This is the most important infrastructure currently in the country. Like I said, once that is in place, we'll begin to see a lot more resilience around the domestic gas infrastructure. I mean, we've also you look at what are the private sector players doing? They're putting their money where their mouth is. So for instance, with Seplat completing the mechanical completion, they currently do about 300 million scoop of gas in the domestic. They're going to add an additional 300. You could see that that's over 600 million scoop of gas a day going into the domestic market, 100%. That's a big commitment from an indigenous player in the sector. And this is what we see when we continue to speak across various players, both on the private side and on the government side. And UPRC, of course, has launched It's a Nigerian gas flaring commercialization program. The bidders have been announced. They're then sort of now trying to work with the owners of the asset to ensure that that progress, that piece of work is accelerated. The NMDPRA, new kid on the block from a regulatory perspective, has also not been left standing. They brought a lot more transparency on the domestic gas infrastructure network. There are still teaching problems, of course, because when you're new, you're asking people to comply with new rules and laws. The industry then just needs to work with you to ensure that you get to where you are going. But are we going in the right direction? Is gas getting the right focus? The answer is yes. The Honorable Minister of State has sort of taken it upon himself to sort of drive the gas agenda. At the last stakeholders forum he held in Abuja, the key big issue that we've also sort of now identified that we need to work together is how we can make cooking gas more available and more affordable. That piece of work has been started where we're looking at where do we get supply from in addition to the total volumes that LNG sort of brings to the market. How do you reduce the import element of it so that you can sort of manage the price expectations? So we're looking at various levers supporting the government to ensure that we get to where we need to get to. Gas is on an upward development curve. You are on the money side. We need you to sort of buy into that vision because investors also need to sort of stand by it. The government is very keen to ensure that they provide the right environment to sort of drive this. Thanks, Nancy.
Okay, so many things coming out from this interview, but let me take it also from the bottom where you talked about cooking gas, because that affects many of us as Nigerians. We still have a lot of people are still cooking with firewood and all of that. Even with the current economic situation, it has even worsened it, as it were. People don't even get firewood to cook anymore because government have been saying over the past few years that we need many Nigerians to move into cleaner energy and all of that, and you're having cooking gas as one of those. Now, when do we begin to see the pricing of cooking gas being affordable, as it were? Mr. Ubong, are you still there? I can see movement behind you.
Yeah, I'm moving. I think I'm about to lose power. We're back to the gas power challenges.
Okay. I can see you clearly where you are now. So if you can get a place where...
Yeah, sorry, I'm back online. So I think, Nancy, I think the work has started. Remain as you will remember
I'm talking about affordability now, because if you're looking at even cooking gas, 25 kg, the last time that I bought 25 kg, I screamed,
It's gone up, and the reality is that we do not have enough supply. And you understand economics, where supply is lagging demand, prices go up. And so what we need to do is to ensure that we can produce more, get more volumes into the market. And that is really the base of it. If you don't have enough of that coming in, then we will continue to struggle with pricing.
So when do we see a reprieve? Because these challenges have also been there. And I know what NLNG has also been doing. I think at the time, they started, supplying the local markets more, but where do we now see a reprieve? When will this situation be better?
I think we are on the journey has started. LNG has committed its volumes there. It meets about 40% of the current market demand. We still need to import about 55% of what we need. Some of the local players have also been very active. You're seeing new LPG plants being built up, well, challenging the value chain. Are there people along the chain where we sort of need to reduce their tech, whether it's taxes, whether it's sort of making the system efficient? The Honorable Minister of State has sort of set a clear direction that he doesn't want to see any volume of LPG being exported. So he's then speaking with some of the remaining players in the industry to sort of see how they can sort of bring their own volumes back into the market. It will take a little bit of time, but I think all hands are on deck to sort of see how we can sort of bring this key resource under control. Of course, there is a sector that we still haven't sort of fully unlocked, which is piping gas to homes. And of course, when you sort of see that piping gas to homes, basically building local networks that can sort of get gas directly to the home, this is a key intervention that we need to find a way to do. But of course, it's going to be private sector driven. This is what happens in every developed country. Gas is piped to homes. It's only then in remote areas where you don't have gas pipelines that you then need to sort of move physical cylinders around. We're going to get there, Nancy. with your support and with everybody's support, we're going to sort of drive the change that we need to enjoy the benefits of gas during this next decade.
Now, let's talk about gas to power. You just told me that power went off where you are. And I know that earlier, was it earlier this month? Or precisely, I think the first week of this month, where we saw, I think, even Minister Adelabu Power. We've seen challenges of gas supply to thermal plants in Nigeria, and we've seen consistent blackouts. In fact, I can't count the number of blackouts that I have right now in my area. It just comes and goes, comes and goes. The power situation has worsened. I also know that there are deaths associated to gas. So how do you see us really addressing this? Because I know Adelabu on one part, the power minister, and Ekperikpe, isn't it? That's the gas minister, also working together trying to sort out this issue. But as an expert, as the former MD of Shell Nigeria Gas, what exactly is the issue? Is it really the issue of only money?
Thanks, Nancy. Money is always an issue.
Money makes the world go round.
Exactly, and that's why we're on money line.
Yes.
So basically, I think the key bit is that maybe let me start with the collaboration. So we have the gas minister sitting with the power minister. They've set up an interministerial panel and committee to work together in an integrated manner. Fantastic. That work is ongoing. There is the issue of gas arrears. Over the past 4 months, the 4 or 5 months, the federal government has actually paid over 120 million of those legacy debts. So now the debts have reduced from about $1 billion to about 100. That's a big signal also to the power players. As we speak today, there's a lot of debt reconciliation work going on in Abuja with a plan to sort of find a way to sort of put to bed all these gas to power arrears conversation. It will be a big boost to the sector if we get to that point, because then investors can focus on what they need to do to bring more gas to the power plant. You've seen how in all the discussions, we are back to the same thing. How do we get more gas? I think if we complete the OB3 line, allow these huge 20% additional volumes to become available, we'll see some step change in the power sector. But of course, the power minister is working on a lot of initiatives to sort of see how we sort of tackle this. But I'll maybe pause there and hope that sort of provide a little bit more clarity.
Yes. What is this exactly about, domestic pricing of gas in dollars? I had an interview, I think about 2 weeks ago, with the Director General of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And when he was even speaking, in one of his remarks, he mentioned that gas still being priced in dollars. I know that it's also internationally benchmarked, like crude and all of that. But it's also a challenge. Is there a way out of this, really?
Yeah, so Nancy, I think the issue of gas pricing in dollars is, I think we just need to be clear what we're saying there. So gas pricing is tied to dollars, but it is settled in Naira.
Okay.
And the minister has indicated that he would like even the pricing itself to be fully anchored around dollars. In the past, when we sort of did a sweep across the value chain, our initial view is that 80% of the cost that is involved in getting gas to power and to end customers is incurred in dollars. So we then have that dilemma. Do we totally take away a dollar index? Today, the Secretariat is doing a piece of work that involves the global benchmarking to see what happens in other jurisdictions. Are we within the boundary of what we need to do, and then what do we need to change? That piece of work is ongoing. We'd only be able to sort of share our initial thoughts with the Minister of Power and Minister of State for Gas sometime in early April. But for us, our view is always that let the data lead, let us understand where we need to go to. And like you always say in Moneyline, we are part of a global ecosystem. So we need to be sure that whatever decision we need to make does not sort of move us either as an outlier, but still keeps us within the investable regions that are required in the world.
Now let's go back to the executive orders that President Tinubu signed on the 28th of February this year. 3 executive orders. And when I read that piece, I was like, okay, good that I'm having you today. I would like you to speak on perhaps any one of those three executive orders that will really impact the gas sector. Because I know that the first one is oil and gas companies, you have tax incentives, exemption, as well as, what's the next one? Remission. Then I think the second one is the presidential directive on local content compliance. Then the third one is the presidential directive on a reduction of petroleum sector contracting cost and timelines. Now, I've reeled out these three. Which components of these three EOs would really directly impact the sector? And are there quick wins that we can begin to get, at least from February, that Mr. President signed?
Indeed, Nancy. The executive orders send a very strong positive signal to the investable community. For a long time, we've asked the questions whether our gas fields that sit onshore and have only gas without oil, that's what we call non-associated gas fields, in shallow water and onshore, whether they are investable, because we are not in those sort of projects, we are unable to write off gas costs against oil. So when they went in the first set of fiscals around the NAG fields for onshore and shallow water, like I said earlier, what this has done is that for any serious investor with a project in that terrain, we see the Secretariat's analysis, we see a 5 to 10% additional points added to your IRR. So if you had an IRR, for instance, that was marginal at maybe 9, 10%, it means that if this is implemented, that your sort of project sort of begins to fall between the 15 to 20% IRR, which is fantastic anywhere in any part of the world. So I mean, as the operators begin to sort of dive into then see what this means, I think you'll begin to see more positive development around the gas sector in terms of investments.
Now, let's talk about the commercialization of gas flares. I know that there's a Nigerian gas flare commercialization, commercialization, so much English, a gas flare commercialization project that I think was launched, I think by NUPLC, if I'm not mistaken. Assess the impact for me of gas flares in Nigeria. Of course, a lot, that is money that is actually wasting. All of us knows. But with this project that the NUPLC, of course, launched, the commercialization of gas flares, how do you think that it will change the narrative?
So Nancy, I think you sort of spot on around the big opportunity that exists in how we sort of monetize flare gas. And the NUPRC has taken that piece of work on. The chairman of the NGFCAP, Dr. Kelechi Ofebu, had sort of given an update. So the fields have been awarded, the bidders have been notified. There is then a critical piece of work where the winners of the flared sites have to work with the operators who own the larger part of the field to be able to then move from award to projects, project decisions, and then actual construction. It would be a game changer if we are able to sort of identify a few of these fields that then actually move to actual reducing the flares and then sort of monetizing the gas. And I think it will be that phase by phase approach that would sort of create more confidence for other investors to sort of support the overall flare gas program. But it's largely on track. Like I said, engagements are ongoing. The additional fiscal incentives provided by the president will only go a long way in sort of helping those investors in the flared gas program to also look at their numbers and see if they can then accelerate the investment needed to actually commercialize those flared volumes. Of course, with flares in every jurisdiction, you usually also have to have penalties to sort of dissuade operators. And here in Nigeria, the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources had inaugurated the Midstream and Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, which actually takes some of those flare penalties and reinvest it in gas infrastructure and also to ameliorate the effect of flaring on some of the flare communities. So we have it right. I think we have the setup right on what we need to do to bring down the flares, to drive some amelioration of flares on communities, to invest new capital to build infrastructure that takes it away. We just then need to continue to work it week by week, month by month, and sort of get the benefits that we need.
Do you think that perhaps investors in that space, the flaring commercialization program, I know as at September last year, the NUPRC gave, I think, about 42 licenses. I don't know if it has increased from that, but do you think that it's, I don't want to say bankable because I know that these companies would have dotted their I's and crossed their T's, but how much sustained interest do you think that we can have in that space since Nigeria has been suffering from gas flaring for many decades, as I know? Then another thing is sustained interest even in the gas sector amidst all of this that the federal government is doing, and perhaps the Decade of Gas Secretariat where you are the coordinating director.
No, I think the bidders are serious, and I think that's why we always talk about people want to invest.
So that it doesn't look like the other licenses we had in the crude. You know what I'm talking about, in the crude space where people just had licenses and left it there. You know, since Obasanjo days.
So Nancy, let me stay with the gas. You know, where you put oil and gas, oil always wins.
Yes, oil, yeah, exactly. But you, know, I've stuck with you on gas since.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, so I think on the gas side, the bidders are there. We need to work with them in a constructive manner. Both the bidders and the operators of the field where those flare sites are. It's going to be a mutual discussion to sort of accelerate how those flares can be reduced. I mean, you've seen that the flare penalties themselves have increased. So it's also in the interest of operators to sort of reduce their flaring as soon as possible. I mean, Total Energies, for instance, onshore don't have any sort of flaring. A fantastic record for an independent oil company in country. And the minister also mentioned this on the back of Sarah earlier this week. So I think we have what we need. We just need to keep working the bits and pieces. It's grueling work. It's difficult, but it's the direction that we need to go, both for Nigeria and, of course, as you would know, the whole of West Africa, the whole of Africa relies on Nigeria to help bring energy in the form of gas for the transition and in terms of leadership for continuing to sort of support the investment community.
Okay, the Decade of Gas project, you're supposed to carry out 10 projects, if I'm not mistaken, to generate about $12 billion in revenue for the federal government and about $14 billion in FDI, then create about 2 million jobs in the gas value chain from that time till 2030. How achievable is this for you and your folks, you and your colleagues at the Secretariat? Is it such a lofty goal?
No, I mean, but it's a big challenge, but it's one that has been backed by data. So we started with 10 projects, but by the time we had engaged and worked with the various stakeholders, we now have 20 plus projects.
Okay.
We thought we were sort of chasing 3 BCF a day in additional volumes. Today, there is over 4.6 BCF a day that is going to sort of come on stream. In 2024 alone, we expect first gas and FID for 5 projects. Iseni has already happened in January. Asa North by Seplat has already been mechanically completed. We expect 3 more projects to sort of reach FID this year. And then, of course, 2 projects FID, and 1 project will reach first gas, which means we also expect additional volumes of gas to come on stream. I'm taking the approach year by year, Nancy, so that we can say these are our goals for the year. Come December, have we been able to sort of achieve the goal, working with this wide range of stakeholders? What is then a reasonable goal to set for next year? But can we get to 12, 15 BCF a day by 2030? The answer is yes. Our current estimate is that demand could even grow as high as 22 billion BCF a day.
Can you get 2 million jobs? Can you get 2 million jobs by that 2030 so that it doesn't look like the 2019 promise of President Buhari to say he will create 100 million jobs by 2019 in 10 years from 2019 to 2029, and we don't have anything. So it doesn't look like that kind of promise.
But Nancy, so let me stick with the gas sector jobs.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. Would you be able to?
100 million jobs.
Yes. Would you be able to create that?
I think the beauty. Yeah, I think the beauty. I mean, if you look at, for instance, what happens in the industrial sector, think of a typical factory in Oshodi or Ikeja. When that factory is working, you see the big bosses that bring in all manner of skilled and unskilled labor. They drive into that factory, they run various shifts. That's real employment. You can see it, you can feel it. when they are selling products, you remember the days you used to see the whole of Oshodi with the traffic as people moving to lift goods, finished goods, of those factories. So the linkage is very strong and it's there.
Okay.
We are confident that jobs are going to be created. Like every other activity, at the end of the year, we do another quick review and scan how much of that has been achieved. Do we need to sort of set new goals?
Okay.
But jobs will definitely be created in the sector. Imagine if you sort of was able to improve our sort of uptime in the power sector by 10 to 20%, providing more electricity. That's a huge incentive for more people to get gainfully employed, doing various activities.
Okay,
The
30
linkage
seconds.
is so strong that we just need to keep working it.
In 30 seconds, do you have any scoop that you want to drop with me here? If not,
no. I think I've hinted it, and I've
hinted.
said it a little bit again.
Yes.
Probably nobody has sort of shared that publicly, but I think as investors double down, looking at the executive orders, they would be able to see that for projects that fall within that scope, that it can actually significantly make their projects bankable. Okay. IRRs of 5 to 10% additional to what they had before will not be uncommon.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ubong. I hope to speak with you again later in the year, or your secretariat, to see where you guys have gone, since you've made more aspirations. Not, you even have more desires and more objectives. So I wish all of you well. So we'll talk again sometime in the year. Thank you very much for coming, and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Nancy. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. All right, I've been speaking with Mr. Mr. Ed Ubong, who is the coordinating director, Decade of Gas Secretariat, former managing director at Shell Nigeria Gas. We've been looking at the recent developments in that space, and you've seen quite a whole lot that we've talked about. I'll see you all again tomorrow, God willing. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Bye now. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content. Bye.